We all know that parting can be such sweet sorrow. We also know now that parting can be such sweet sorrow part 2. Because it is indeed the end of Star Trek Discovery Season 2. And that means it is the end of our after show. But we have so much to talk about that I think that there's so much to break down. I can't even tease it all. Let's just say you got some impalings, you've got some clean shavenness, you've got time travel both ways, and not even one to Kuvma. Star Trek Discovery After Show starts now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What do you mean we only have 39 minutes from now? Anyway, this is the Star Trek Discovery After Show. I'm Christian Blatt. Over there is Flobo Boys.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Woo! Wait, you think it's funny. Birthday boy in the booth, Jonathan. Nikki, say hi.
Hi, guys.
And, I'm sorry, have we met?
No. I guess I thought I'd just sitting here. What's going on? What show
have you
is
been
this?
here this whole time?
No, what?
No.
The property values are going down, guys. The people
Frank!
walking in.
They're letting everybody in this joint.
There goes the quadrant. Frank Moran!
That's right. Yes, back and we'll talk about this season finale.
There's so much to talk about in this episode, but Frank, because you weren't here last week, I need to start with this. When you saw the bridge of the Enterprise last week, thoughts?
I mean, if you're accepting the aesthetic of this new show
Yes.
and accepting that is the canon timeline, I enjoyed the look of it. And it'd be a shame if there really wasn't I'd rather see a Pike series. Because if you're going to invest that time building that set, let's put it to use.
Yeah, I'd like... Look, I want all the series. I want the Pike series. I want the Georgiou series. I want the Section 31 series, because that's not necessarily the same show.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. But the last act of this kind of was the Pike series. So, let us know what it is. Anyway, so much to talk about in terms of this week. And I think that one of the things I always say about Discovery is, well, what I always start with is that it's the best show on television, except for the fact it's not on television. It's on CBS All Access. And if it week after week, it just shows you that, one, it's a great show in terms of character development and where the story's going. But this week illustrated something that we've seen consistently throughout both seasons. They spent a shit ton of money on this show. I understand Netflix pays them $4 million per episode because they distribute it around the world outside of North America. But God, they spend all of it. They don't even keep like 10 cents, And this episode, maybe that's why we had that 39-minute episode a few weeks ago or whatever it was. Actually, that was Twilight Zone had 39-minute episode, but this had like a 41-minute episode. And maybe they were saving it for this. But, all the space battle, we talk about everything that went on around it, but let's just start off with that. I was just like, I usually take notes while it's going on. I was like, I can't look away from this. So my notes that are in front of me are just ridden with typos and misspellings, and I'm so glad that no one can see it except me and Flobo. But don't look. But it was just so impressive, and I just the visuals. Flobo, Nikki, and myself were watching in the trailer. Frank, too good for us, but that's fine.
True.
We knew that. Nikki, I don't know if you remember, but early, right at the beginning of the actual space battle, there was a moment where something happened that made you gasp. Do you remember what it was?
I don't. I think
so. I'll tell you what it was, and then you can.
I'll tell you.
No, well, because I made a mental note. It's when Saru points out to Leland that they clearly outnumber them, and I know what Leland says. He says, "Count again." Mm-hmm. And there was an audible. There were a few reactions from you, but that was the first you didn't see that coming, did you?
What? All those little ship things flying out? What? I couldn't take notes either.
Yeah.
I was stunned by everything that was happening. It was just it was a feast for the eyes.
I think that's the perfect way to summarize it. Flobo, what you saw, again, we're really focused on the space battle for the time being.
For sure, and that space battle was pretty extended, right? It wasn't just like a wham bam thank you ma'am. It's Definitely was visually stunning, as they say, but just the rack focuses and the different angles and having the different models of different ships at the same time. Like, I'm sitting there thinking, I wonder how big this render farm was at the effects house and how long it took to make it happen, and it was just impressive. Especially when there's sometimes you're thinking, oh, maybe they're talking a bit too much in some episodes, and then they go, bam, piece with the eyes.
Frank, in any previous series of Star Trek, how do you think a battle like that would play out?
It would have been many less starships involved.
Maybe about 90 seconds.
Yeah.
And a lot of we see the battle start, we maybe see the middle, and then they go to commercial and they come back. Whew, that was some battle, wasn't it? Yeah, let's sit around and talk about it for 20 minutes.
Yes.
And look, there's movies that don't spend that kind of money, and I don't know. I'm always interested in what the budget is, but this episode in particular,
Chat says 8.5 mil per episode.
Who says that?
Chat?
Oh, yeah, but who in the chat?
Oh, IDCA Warrior says
All right,
8.5 million billion budget per episode.
All right. I was going to single somebody out, and we love the chat. Well, they love you.
The chat's the best chat ever. Got the chat just for K.
I know, it's 1:30 in the morning for people on the West Coast. On the East Coast. It's
Portugal,
1:30 in the morning for me.
everyone tunes in. Yeah.
Wait, Portugal's here?
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh, not right now.
Well,
But yeah, I think that, and let us know in the chat what you thought of just some of the visuals. I mean, yeah, and the way we live in an age where pretend spaceships can move in ways that they never could before. I mean, there's some charm to practical effects, but when you can get them to move the way that they moved on the show and have them look good, because look, we've seen CGI where it doesn't really work. To some people, this is sacrilege, but the whole series, Babylon 5, didn't work for me for the simple reason that when they cut to the spaceships and the action, I'm like, oh, it's like they cut to a cartoon that doesn't seem like it's in the same reality as the show. And to, look, even Sci-Fi Channel's Battlestar Galactica had times where it's like, that looked better than that. I don't know. It's seamless with this show. I haven't ever seen one where I'm like, I don't know. But anyway, so week after week, it's just very impressive, and it's like to weave it into the story. I think is it's like, oh, you want to see some stuff blow up? Sure, we'll do that. What does it have to do with? Do you care? So. I don't know. What are people saying in the chat?
So shout out to the DOT-7s, the repair bots. They were Radar Artemis says Starfleet co-opted Wally. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And everyone's pretty much in agreement that the big scenes outside for the space battle left a lot to love out of that. Why is this random comment by Daniel Brown saying Frank's 100% right? That's not true at all. He's never right.
Very true.
Other than that,
yeah, no. I mean, Frank's been like 20% right a couple of times, but he's never been 100% right.
Yeah, Bill says the Enterprise Bridge and Turbolift were awesome updates to the original, back to the original.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The interpretation, so all visual.
As much as everybody loved the visuals for that fight, and certainly you've always wanted to see that on a Star Trek series kind of realized in such a way. I felt kind of, I don't know. It was really drawn out, and I felt like it's great to see a bunch of spectacle, but I also felt like, oh boy, I really could have used a little bit more story to anchor this.
Oh boy.
Yes. Sorry.
No, look, Frank's here to rain on our parade. No, I see. Look, I actually. I can't believe this, Frank, but I disagree with you because I thought there was enough story. I thought that they had a good balance because, it's like, the movie with the car chase that's 20 minutes and you're like, more? I thought that they cut away from it. I liked somehow they made it work to have interactions between Spock and Burnham during all of this. And Stamets and Hugh, when clearly it wasn't the time for any of this. But, you can also understand, it's like, well, if we don't say it now, maybe we'll never get a chance. So I thought, I liked kind of the dual bridge action, having the Discovery and the Enterprise at the same time. What did you think of that, Nikki?
I did too. Sometimes you are watching and you're just thinking, get to the next thing. There are moments when I'm like, get to the next thing. I was living for this entire battle sequence. I was living for, both bridges, people yelling commands from different places. Who just said that? I don't know. What's going on? I did have a moment where I felt like it was like sensory overload for me, where I just thought there's just too much happening on the screen right now. But I loved it, even though it was a little too much at times.
Yeah, I mean, well, because we have the CBS All Access with the commercials, we got to take a break because I needed to stand down a couple of times because it was exhausting. But there's so many different places we can start. But let's obviously talk about Michael because it all revolves around her. This entire plan, and in true Michael Burnham fashion, she gets exactly where she needs to be, and he's like, and it's just, I can't do it. It's not working. Yeah. And as is so often the case, with help from Spock, she figures out what she needs to do, which I think is interesting. That it was at this moment that she sent the signals. When you get into time travel and like these self-fulfilling prophecies, well, you have to do it now so that you can come right back and then go into the future. I don't know. It makes me glad that I can't understand real science because pretend science is just way too confusing for me. But I really liked all the stuff between Burnham and Spock, and we always knew that he wasn't going with her wherever they were going. But I really enjoyed watching it, and I don't know. I mean, we'll talk about the way things wind up in a little bit, but as it's unfolding, Frank, what did you think of this? This frustration that Burnham inevitably always finds herself in, and the fact that she always finds a way to persevere.
Oh, look at her go! Look at her go! Our little red angel, making it happen. The thing that I thought was a little confusing to me was that they made such a big deal about the time crystal, where the way they were powering it is basically a one-shot trip.
Yeah.
But suddenly, Burnham can now make 5 trips plus the 1 trip that she needs to make into the future, which didn't seem like in the scope of what they had set up that this time crystal was going to be capable of.
Yeah, and in Star Trek, they would usually have, especially in this show where they do all the fan service, you think they would say like, well, trips to the past don't really, you know what I mean? They should have had some explanation for that. I was too excited by all the pretty flashing lights. I didn't even think of that. Flomo, did you pick up on that?
Oh, I did not. I'm way not as astute as Frank is when it comes to watching these episodes. I would say this. I loved everything. I love the fact they took the time to explain to my slow public school educated person what those signals meant. I appreciated that. But I tell you what, if you are a person out there who does not like Michael Burnham, who thought Michael Burnham was way too much to focus, seeing her as a Red Angel suit was a total middle finger to your sensibilities, because her flying through space and her going through those different planes was basically all Burnham, maximum Burnham all the time. And I enjoyed it personally, but I can only imagine some guy in chat being like, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of people that, for all sorts of reasons, just don't like the singular focus on that character. I think that the character's always been interesting. I liked that we got a better balance in season 2. But yeah, it's always revolved around her, and especially the story that they were telling this season. We kind of figured out early on. I think that the whole Red Angel thing, as we talked about in the early weeks of the season, it seemed frustrating, and I didn't know what the payoff was going to be. And I would say it's mostly satisfying. It's a little like, all right. I mean, I guess it's her having to put all these things together. But what did you think, Nikki, about the way that the Red Angel from this moment goes back and tries to basically connect all the dots of the season?
I actually had a moment where I got bored. I felt like it took her too long to have to, like, we had already been to all those places. I didn't need to see her go back to all of them. So I felt like that took too long. Or maybe not too long, but I got bored with it. So, yeah. And so I do think, though, I had the same thought you had about the time crystal. How is it now able to do all this extra stuff? But I did really love the fact that we got that Spock Burnham moment.
Yeah.
And that made the tedium of going back to all the 5 signals worth it for me.
And while all of this is going on, Captain Georgiou manages to dispatch Leland, a.k.a. Control, begging the question that if you kill Control, why do you need to go into the future, Frank?
Thank you.
No, that's very true. Control's been destroyed.
Because I was just like, okay, so we're still doing this. And the explanation that we had gotten earlier in the season was we have to send the data into the future. But the Control is what you don't want to get the data. So if you have stopped Control, and when the Leland entity, the whatever, the carbon-based life form that looked like Leland, when he died, all the ships stopped, and then they just picked him off, and that was the end of it. So I'm not quite sure why everybody has to keep going. And again, in Star Trek, oftentimes there's an explanation like, oh, we've already set the course, and we can't pull back. We should. We're trying to, but something's broken in Discovery. In this battle where we were down to 9% of shields, and we have to go. What were you going to say, Nikki?
This is where I remember before the show I said I had a question and I wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
So this is where my question was. So Leland comes aboard, Control comes aboard looking for the data. It's not where he thinks it's going to be.
Yes.
Giorgio holds up that little thingamabobber thing.
Yeah.
Is it on the thingamabobber?
No.
Where is it?
Well, as Leland tells us later, she put it in the spore drive.
Oh, right. I do remember that now.
Yeah. So, but that device was how she could move it. So she put it in there, and then he said like, oh, you put the two most valuable things on the ship together.
Right.
Putting it into the spore drive. So, but yeah, I mean, I can certainly in that moment, I was just like, okay, well, what did she do with it? And
so does it get destroyed in the spore? Like, is that something we just don't know? Like, do the spores just deconstruct biological material, or are they?
I would think that, because I don't think it was that the data is in that chamber. I think it's in the drive itself. So again, a question for season 3, but I liked the simultaneous, the space battle. We did have kind of a cool zero gravity fight with Leland. What did you think of that, Flobo?
The fight itself was good on paper. I was a bit disappointed because I felt like they could have used that device a little more.
Zero gravity?
Yeah, I felt like it was kind of like in the corner, and then it was in the corner a bit. Like, I really wanted to see more of the actual tumbling, but that's just me.
All right. So I'm the only one who's impressed by this show.
No,
it didn't feel like zero gravity to me. It felt like moved gravity.
Okay, so it was like half gravity.
Right.
It was like not
gravity.
zero gravity.
But it was still badass. That was my point. That was the whole point coming around to it. But to answer your question before, I thought that was to set up Georgiou being in the future and having her own Section 31 from scratch. Because the ones we have here in the present are pretty much damaged goods. Like, that's not a group I would support, or I don't think they're that effective at all. But I think that's a chance for her to go all the way. As far as why she didn't jump off the ship, I have no idea. That's not going to be explained.
What, Georgiou? Well, I don't think you can get off the ship at that point.
Yeah.
Well, again, at the point that Control is dead and the assault stops, yes, you could have.
Yeah.
But who knows why she does what she does?
Well, I feel like revenge was probably her biggest motivator. So that was getting revenge on Leland or Control was more important than her getting off the ship.
Sure.
But I felt like the battle between Leland and Giorgio, I like the concept of the zero G, but it wasn't quite as satisfying as even just a couple episodes ago when they were fighting down on the planet, and you got to really see Michelle Yeoh hold her own against Leland. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm seeing. That's what I want to see. And I feel like this one, it's like I feel like I got the Giorgio light in this fight sequence.
And Nan a bit, Commander Nan being there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, she gave some assist.
Yeah, they're a good team, by the way. I thought.
Yeah, and this basically was the realization, although indirectly, of what Giorgio suggested early on. It's like, let's invite him aboard the ship. And she had a great quote that I was able to write down, which was, I leave very little to chance, especially when it comes to revenge, which I think she gets a lot of really good lines. Let's just be honest about that.
But I also guess I feel like time, because the whole thing is Burnham touches the time crystal. She sees the vision of Leland storming aboard the Discovery and killing everybody on the bridge. He also sees the Enterprise get that photon torpedo lodged in it as well. I mean, the Enterprise part still happens, but I guess it's just Burnham leaving Discovery that changes that, so that Leland still comes on and nobody else gets killed really on the bridge.
We see him shoot everyone, on the bridge, and I don't think anybody died. None of our main cast died.
No, but in her flash forward when she touches it, yeah.
But I mean, in this actual reality, we saw something similar to what she saw, and I mean that's the point that I guess that Spock makes, that you see a possible future, except for Christopher Pike, who sees his actual future.
I was just about to say that. Like,
He's
that
the only one.
It's possible too.
Pike's like, oh, maybe mine could change too. And then fast forward, he's just going to blink twice, like, oh no, I was wrong. I didn't.
I mean, I assume it only happens to the person that actually takes the crystal the first time, breaks it off.
Oh, that's
Is
true.
that person the one that it just gets solidified for, and then everybody else can just experience visions of the future? I don't know.
Well, let's find out. We're going to bring in a time crystal. Frank, you
Perfect.
first.
All right.
I'm still sitting here, guys. What's going on?
Before we move on to our next topic, someone has an important message, but I'm not quite sure who it is. Nikki? Frank? Flobo?
folks.
Who has an important
I think
message?
it's always Frank's important announcement.
Oh, well, gosh, guys. I mean, fresh from Starfleet HQ.
Yes.
Yes. They want to make sure that we thank everybody. I mean, this is the season finale of Discovery, and we'll be back when they do the Picard show or for whatever other shows spin out of the Star Trek universe on CBS All Access. But for now, thank you so much for watching us and the other great shows that all of us are a part of here at AfterBuzz and helping us become the ESPN of TV talk, not TV sports, TV talk. But we also need your help. So if you're listening to us on iTunes, why don't you give us a 5-star rating? If you're watching on iTunes, like and subscribe to the channel. But no matter where you are, get involved in the conversation. Leave a comment so you make Flobo happy. So he's got his laptop up. You can see all those great comments there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stress Free K. I mean, we couldn't do this without your
Beta
thoughtful
Artemis.
insights. Yes, exactly. So thank you so much for enjoying the shows and continue to watch.
Yeah, because it's the last week, why not highlight the flub? Yeah, ESPN would actually be the ESPN of TV sports. I just wanted to, wanted to make sure that
FS1 is not ESPN.
Yeah, well, no, that's the FS1 is not the ESPN of TV. Anyway, there were a lot of questions answered in the course of this. I was going to say hour, but hour 5 minutes.
Yep.
That's why we had to get in the trailer a few minutes early so that we could start this show on time. We'll sort of go back and talk a little bit, but let's talk about what has been the burning question about this show from the pilot, which is, why has no one ever talked about any of this? And this is yet another instance of, oh, the Klingons have grown their hair back. I don't want any of these crazy hollow screens. View screens only. Just how they over-explain everything. And I do feel like, I mean, God, I'm 43. I would say I've been a Star Trek fan for more than 35 years. I count myself one of you, but Star Trek fans are the ones that need this more than anyone else because we get so angry. And Frank and I have been very angry through the course of these 2 seasons, And it's a lot of like, why are we in this timeline? Well, season 3 is going to address that. But what did you think? I'm going to start with Frank mostly because this is kind of, I think in our first after show we asked this question.
Yes.
Why does no one talk about this? Why has Spock never even mentioned her? Why doesn't Sarek mention her? Why doesn't Amanda mention her? Okay, here's why. Because it's treasonous to even talk about them. But let me create my personal log where I reference it.
Yes.
Spock. But apart from that, let's never talk about it. Frank, how did you feel about the way that they finally addressed the most burning question about Star Trek Discovery from maybe not minute 1, but like minute 10?
To be honest, this would work for me if this was the last time we ever dealt with the Star Trek Discovery cast. If this is it.
If this was the end of the show,
this is
they
the
just
end of
had
the
a
show.
2-season run.
And then next season we go on to something else in the Star Trek
the
universe.
way that Brian Fuller wanted to do the show. Yeah.
Exactly. And then it'd be great. And then maybe 2 seasons down the road, 3 seasons down the road, you could revisit it and that'd be great. Oh my gosh, we're going back to the Discovery crew? How cool. We'll see what happened to them when they went into the future. But for now, it's like I honestly feel no need to follow the Discovery crew. I feel like this just booked into the story. We get the beacon at the end. I don't need to see them in season 3.
No.
I really have zero interest in seeing what happens to them. As somebody that wanted to go into the future,
Yeah.
I don't want to go to the future with the Discovery crew. This is just a nice closing to their story. Let's pick up somewhere else.
Translation, Frank's just not that into you.
No.
Well, Frank, we're going to miss you on the panel next year.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a shame.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, honestly, this was such a great sales pitch for a Pike, for an original Enterprise show. I mean, it was such a great sales pitch.
I agree, and at least a decent entry point for the Section 31 Ash Tyler show. You know, I'm not like foaming at the mouth with excitement for it, but I'm like, okay, they've set it up well. Let's see where it goes. You know, I think they did a good job on that, and I think that yes, they set up. You know, they did a great job setting up a Christopher Pike show, and Anson Mount on Twitter earlier this week responded to all the people, and all he said was, "That's very nice of everybody to say that," and that's all he said. Not like me too, hint hint. But Nikki, what did you think about this? It's basically the epilogue portion of the episode. For those that are listening, you can't see her face.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
Now. I wish you could see it right now.
Yeah.
But for those who can't see your face, let's verbalize those feelings.
Oh, hell no.
Well, okay, look. I don't even know what to say except that I absolutely agree with you, Frank, about the show could end now, and I would be completely satisfied with that. In fact, I didn't look again, but I think I might have written down that should end the series because otherwise now we're in the future or some other place, and it's what, Voyager 2 now? What does it become? And so
I just broke out into a cold sweat.
So I don't know. I felt like it was just too much to cover up. So what? All the people on that ship, their families have to not acknowledge that they exist anymore. Come on. It was just too much. Come on.
I really want to see that speech that Pike gives the whole crew when he says, "And guys, it's treason if you say anything about this to anybody."
So all that stuff that happened, we can't talk about. We're not even talking about it right now.
That did not happen, and it's just an unbelievable ask, and of us as the people watching it, and it's an unbelievable ask in the story too. No.
This is all your fault.
That's all I'm going to say.
This is all your fault because
we said this in season 1.
Yes. We want to know why Burger was not mentioned. And
that's a great Frank impression.
Yes,
by the way. You're doing a really good job.
I was looking at myself.
Found a way to link them together, to find a way to have that story exist, and it's like, well, I don't know. Now, I'll agree with you. That last shot of the Enterprise going towards the Red Angel.
That's pretty awesome.
It was awesome. But
Wait, do you mean the Discovery?
No, the Enterprise going through the Red Angel
okay.
in the future. That looked like an end. It did look like an end. All right, see you next week. Back in how you go.
Or see you never.
See you never,
Yeah.
or how in Europe there's 7-episode seasons. But at the same time, there is a whole new chapter now. What does the future look like?
Well, that's
for
why
these
I
people who
specifically
survived?
wanted to ask you because, as we've discussed on the show in the past, Discovery is your entree into the Star Trek universes. The world of Star... No, that doesn't work. Anyway, into Star Trek.
Yeah.
So, for you, this is the show you know. This is the show you like.
Yeah.
So, it ends like this. And are you excited to be like, wow, I mean, what does the future hold? Or do you agree, it kind of felt like an ending?
I was excited up until the last scene of Pike going, hit it. Because when you ended on him, it's like, all right, he's going to go off and do his own thing.
Yeah.
Are we switching focus? But I was on board until the end because you are going to the future. What does that look like? They said goodbye to their families before. This is a whole new day. And they can free themselves of the original timeline, which I've been told makes it like why these technology didn't exist thing. That was totally free from that. I want to see them unleashed, unchained. But then it was like, oh, there's a Red Angel spot over there. Cool. The end.
Well, I think that part of that was set up so that we know at least that they made it, because they clearly made the decision, and we talked about this right after it ended, that they made the decision not to show us them in the future. Even, when they get there, they end up in some terrible situation, and we just see a minute of it, and it's like, oh yeah, now you have to wait a year or more to see where it goes. They didn't want to show us any of that. I don't agree with that decision because I wanted to see what was on the other side, but from a creative standpoint, I get the idea of we got to take a year to figure this out. I have no idea what's on, they just don't know what's there.
Right.
So I guess when we're able to look back on the way this season ended, another season from now, which will be more than a year from now. I'm sure not that anyone said that, but you just know how long a show like this takes. I hope that taking the time will pay off. Sure. I am interested in where they go, and it'll be interesting to see where it is, because it is going to be well beyond a point in history that we've ever seen in Star Trek, but it definitely felt like it could have ended here. And by not showing them, it felt like an ending, So I thought that it would have helped for me to see the Discovery again, maybe just for a minute in the future, even right after Hit It. And then we kind of transition to like how everybody's doing where they go. But you're pointing at the chat though. So what's happening?
Pat Wyvern, who doesn't really talk a lot, but props, said they got things wrapped up in a nice bow, but I kind of want to see where they take things with all the future stuff. So there is some curiosity there on that end. I know some other one in the chat was saying, let's see. Andrew Gibbon says, we see what's on the other side. It's in Calypso. The crew obviously left the ship. This seems the way to me. There's no guarantees it's been Artemis. So there is a bit of a debate of what's on the other side, and maybe we should have seen a little bit about it. But to me, it was kind of like, that was nice, both everything.
It is interesting that, because Detmer, when she says, like, when you get there, there's going to be nothing there.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know if you're really thinking fourth dimensionally, because the whole reason there's nothing there is because Control has destroyed everything. You take away the sphere data, then that's not going to be the future you're going into. You're going to go into a fully populated Federation.
More Telosians. Yes.
So it's like, there's going to be plenty of stuff there. So
you're
going to be fine.
Yeah, I think, that whatever that future is, I don't know. In the way that the Next Generation was a generation, removed from Klingon Wars, and, you had Worf on the bridge, and, who knows what it is that they're going to see. Does this, the way that this season ended, Nikki, do you think it negates that theory that this created the Borg, or are there little tiny bits of Control on the floor there in the Spore booth?
I don't know. I hope so. That would be awesome.
That it is or it isn't?
That we didn't have Borg fears anymore.
Yeah.
That they could alleviate the fear that the Borg are going to be introduced now. But again, I agree with you. I feel like there should have been some glimpse of what's on the other side, just because I need something to look forward to. And I feel like they wrapped it up, and I'm going to watch it, obviously, when it comes back. Cause that's
not Frank.
No, not interested in what you got to show me.
No? Yep. I'm going to watch it because I watch all the Star Trek things.
Frank's like, I'm going to be busy watching the Orville.
That's right.
I actually haven't watched that. Oh, anyway, that's not this. Whatever. But no, I'm gonna watch. But I don't need that now. Like so, and I, hello people, could you please get me a Christopher Pike series starring Anson Mount?
Wow.
I want it. I need it.
There would seem to be a few years before whatever happens to Pike happens. We're a few years before Jim Kirk takes over the Enterprise. We don't know exactly when any of it happens. So yeah, we could get that. Maybe they want to do a Pike miniseries if they don't want to commit to it for some reason. But I would like them to fill in that story, maybe even if it's not in the next year, but because they have so many other Star Trek series that are in development. I don't know. I feel like it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't see more.
Especially because, the fan response has been huge for him.
So huge, yeah.
And I think people have really warmed up to Ethan Peck as Spock. And I feel Rebecca Romijn never really got a chance to really shine as number one. I never really got to see her full potential. As excited as I was at the beginning of the season to see number one get a lot of screen time, I was disappointed in I didn't get to see her fully realize as much as I would have liked to.
Fair.
The way that things end, I don't know that there's any question as to who the captain is of Discovery. I feel like it just for lack of other options would be Saru, but also I feel like he proved himself in a situation. Does anybody feel differently? Let me put it that way before.
Not at all.
Instead of asking everyone, what do you think? What do you think?
What do you think?
Yeah.
Well, the only other person I would contend would be Tilly, but it'd be kind of weird to have Tilly in the captain's chair with Saru standing there.
Yeah.
Because why would you go that whole captain squad school thing if it's not going to pay off.
This wasn't my favorite Tilly moment. The I have to do it with my eyes closed because I think it's a drinking game.
Yeah.
I'm like, Tilly, we get it. You're wacky, but just open your eyes. You're going to do it better if you can see. You don't have the Force. This isn't that universe. Come on. What did you think, Flobo, of Admiral Cornwell? The ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, Cornwell was definitely a character that grew on me over time. It was kind of like, whoa, the thankless role. There's going to be like the fun police a bit, but she kind of came to her own, especially moving away from her relationship with Lorca and all that. You know what? Someone had to do it. There had to be some sort of like casualty on the team. It's sad to see her go, but I didn't really see anything for her, and so I think she did the most noble sacrifice. I mean, it was a giant, cannon, bomb, laser?
Photon torpedo.
Photon torpedo. So it's like, yeah, you can't ignore it. So the fact she stepped up and did it,
I want to know what the deal's with her and number one, though, because they have that moment where they clasp arms there together. I'm like, what's up?
Yeah, I did wonder what that was. I mean, it's it's not like Spock and Bones. When in Wrath of Khan, although I don't think we actually see it in Wrath of Khan. It's the scene that's inserted in Search for Spock, where it's like, oh, he put his finger right by his nose. Well, that clearly meant something. So I'm just like, what is that arm thing? But I just don't know what that is. I don't have a good feeling that it was just some weird way to say goodbye. I mean,
and if it was though, then why didn't she do it with Pike? So like it felt like a special thing between the two of them. Mm-hmm. So
which I guess we'll have to wait for the Pike series to have that episode where number one kind of reflects on her time with Admiral Cornwell. Mm-hmm. Can't wait for that episode.
I don't know.
It's writing itself as I speak.
I don't know if you're planning it, but can we just shout out that Hugh and Paul got back together? And
yes,
thank
that was
God.
another time
Sorry.
you were very vocal. I did want to get to that. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rush you.
We're running out of time.
But I just wanted to say it.
Yeah, I agree with it, but it was the most weirdest scene. I'm put in a coma, but I love you so much. It's like,
I agree that's my initial reaction, but thinking about it was that it's like, you're telling him he's going to go into a coma, but you're also saying, like, listen to my voice. You're trying to sort of, like, anchor him. Like, don't, just, you got something to come back for. But, yeah. And, again, that is that moment of, like, we have to have this conversation now, even though this isn't the time for it. There might be no time for it.
It's so romantic.
Which I did think was great. I thought that, I don't know, I thought that they did a really good job of, working in those things. A little bit less the, Burnham, Tyler watching Burnham go away, and he has this little flashback while his Klingon lady friend is like, are you thinking about her right now? I was like, what? Wait,
Klingon Doom.
Frank, have they established that Klingons can see flashbacks? Because I didn't realize that they could. They really can?
Yeah, they can. That was a special thing they developed.
Yeah.
No, that was the look that women give men when men check their text when you're on a date. So she was like, who are you talking to? Like, what are you watching?
I did like, though, that Pike's wink to Giorgio. She says, I'm Taryn from the Mirror Universe.
Oh, yeah,
like
I love that.
I did like that.
Yeah.
Can't pull one by Pike, man. He's up. He knows what the deal is.
Speaking of Klingons, anytime that they invoke the phrase "a good day to die," I'm like, all right, these are my kind of Klingons because they have hair, but also because they. I know. I was hoping just for one Takuvma, just for the sake of you, but I thought that was great, and I do have to give credit to the website Den of Geek because they seem to watch with more eagle eyes than I did. But on the bridge of the Klingon flagship, there apparently was a Klingon who is the more humanoid-looking Klingons that we see in the original series. So we still don't have... I know Enterprise kind of gave us an explanation, but we still don't have the moment of like, okay, now here are these operative Klingons who are supposed to... I still don't understand that. That's something that they've never really been able to fix.
Well, they never talk about it. You know that.
Well, I mean, that's what Worf says. They don't talk about it with outsiders.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know. And they also pointed out that the torpedo detonation explains why the Enterprise conference room looks different in the original series. And you would think that they didn't take that into consideration, but they did. Because clearly they're into tightening up all those lines. And I did love that we got Reno had a very Scotty moment, which she didn't use these words, but she did say, "I cannot change the laws of physics," and I thought that was great. And
get off my ass,
Sir.
is what she said.
yeah, get off my ass,
Sir.
sir, which I thought was great. And I did think it was interesting that when they're being debriefed in San Francisco, number one just identifies herself as number one. So we actually still, I don't think we.
Well,
don't
the chat
know.
is saying she was referenced as Una once in the episode. I can't remember myself.
Her name was referenced.
Yeah, as Una once. It's a chat
Okay,
said
no,
that
it's
before.
fine. I just didn't know.
But yeah, it wasn't.
It seemed though weird that Reno, though, I mean, when they were deciding like, hey, this time crystal isn't powering up as fast as we need it to because it's still encased. So somebody, I guess we could take the case off and do that. So, but somebody's going to have to stay in the room and do it. It made it seem like it was going to be so much more of a huger deal and a sacrifice than it really was. It was just like, I saw a vision of the torpedo hitting the Enterprise hull. Okay, and now I'm back. I'm
Yeah,
like,
all right.
Well, that didn't really mean anything.
It's that good, man.
Digging really deep into the Easter eggs, Spock suggests and creates a new regulation. 157 Section 3, which reads, Starfleet officers are required to take all necessary precautions to minimize any participation in historical events. That regulation appeared in the Deep Space Nine episode, Trials and Tribulations.
Beautiful.
So, they take the time to like, wait, let's just look it up.
Yes.
And let's get it in there. And I don't know, that's always... Always fun to get to see all this stuff.
May I ask one more question?
You can.
Who do we think the interrogator was?
I don't know what their choice was to shoot it like that.
Yeah.
We just get to see him for like the top of his mouth down, and that was it. Like,
Is that a character
Back
we're
to his
supposed to
head?
recognize?
Well, that was why I'm asking, because it felt like they were going to such great lengths to not show his whole face. And I'm like, well, is this supposed to be someone we know?
not that it was apparent to me, and I'm like, well, why are we shooting it like this?
Yeah.
Just show the guy's face already.
Yeah.
I gotcha. I just thought he was just like a nameless suit for the Federation, bro.
I mean, like, yeah, that's true. I get admit, I know Christian loved the fact that we finally learned how Spock got his groove back over the course of the season.
He shaved.
I did not enjoy the unshaved, the shaved Spock. He looked weird to me. And maybe if I saw him a few more episodes, I get
That's
used to
racist.
it. But
You get used to it. Thank you. I'm glad you said it. Yeah, for us clean-shaven guys.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm glad somebody stands up for us. Thank you, Flobo.
No, I agree with you, Frank. I think I said that. I was like, I liked him better with the hair. Like,
Yeah.
he looked weird.
I never loved his neck beard because when Spock's had a beard before, like in the motion picture, he knew to at least shave from like the chin down. This guy Ethan Peck couldn't be bothered. I know we're already out of time, but
that's how Spock grew over the course of these years. He learned the next time he grows a beard, I gotta shave this part.
it's like he was just too itchy, especially on the turtleneck uniforms, which they'll wear at some point or not. I don't even know. Something that we always run out of time for is Flobo's favorite recurring segment.
Great. The ABCD award.
The Above and Beyond the Call of Duty award. We'll do it just for this episode. And so you tell me.
All right. Well, I feel like this is the season finale. I'm talking about season 2.
Okay.
Overall, the man, the myth, the legend, Pike. Pike has put so much on the line, his interactions with the crew. There was not one character that went over the above and beyond the Call of Duty much more than Christopher Pike. That's my choice.
Fair enough. I don't know. I was going to give it to Burnham because, she saved everything and everyone. And, make sure. Loved Captain Pike. But, without her, figuring out some weird way to create the Red Angel and become the Red Angel and go into the future. Who stands out for you on the whole on the season? And it doesn't necessarily have to be in this context, Nikki, but... who's the MVP for the season?
Tilly. I love me some Tilly.
I do
just
love Tilly. She annoyed
love
me
her
this
so
week, though.
much. And I would watch her legit just read a Starfleet manual. I don't even need her to do. She could just read a manual aloud.
Read it aloud
Yeah.
or read it to herself.
She could just read it to herself, and that I would probably enjoy that. I love Tilly.
In real time.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
60 minutes. Just.
Frank, your thoughts the season as a whole? Overall thoughts and who stands out for you, of course.
For me, I got to go with Flobo. I got to go with Pike. It was a character that I've always been intrigued by because, he's especially reading novels and stuff and knowing more about the character that way, but only seeing him that one time on television screens. Or I guess twice if you're thinking about the menageries too.
Yes, blink twice if you're thinking about it.
There you too. But and Ansem he's grown on me as an actor over the course of his career, but he really just came into it for me personally playing Pike this season, and I really just loved it. I mean, as I said earlier, if we don't get to see this iteration of the Enterprise again, I would be disappointed. I think CBS's All Access is turning away a lot of money and viewership if they didn't pursue at least something.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, think that their business model should be to always have a Star Trek series on. You can stagger your schedule where you have the Picard show start after Discovery, and then you put Section 31 and whatever this Georgiou show is. And I mean, there is still apparently a Georgiou series in the works. And that's not necessarily the Section 31 series. So, I don't know. To me, it's confusing, and we've heard of Star Trek Lower Decks, but we have no idea when any of this might actually be in production. I feel like Picard is the furthest along in that scripts are written and at least being read and rewritten. I don't think that they're actually that close to getting in front of cameras, but it shouldn't be too far off. But it's hard to say. And they're just keeping it to themselves. And at some point, we're gonna need to know we're gonna get more Star Trek because I don't know. I mean, there's probably people that are like, great, I can cancel my subscription to CBS All Access. Although I'm a big fan of the Twilight Zone on CBS All Access, and starting next week in this time slot, we'll be doing the Twilight Zone after show.
How convenient.
Not myself and different
Not
people.
us.
No time to mourn at all. That's cool. Just right in.
Yeah,
Wow, we're not even cold yet.
Yeah, that's cool.
Hey, Frank's not even going to watch this show anymore.
That's true. It was done with that.
Anyway, again, I feel like we're leaving something on the table, but I don't know. On the whole, I thought that it was a good ending, and yes, it could have been a good ending to the series. And I just wanted a glimpse of season 3. Like, season 1 ended in like, oh, it's the Enterprise. Wow. Okay, that's really cool. And we talked a lot on this show about what that could be, and I don't know that we were right. I actually didn't think we would get as much interaction with Enterprise crew this season. I certainly didn't think that Captain Pike was going to take over the Discovery. So I'm glad that that's what we got. And whatever they do for next season, I'm looking forward to it. But so we'll be back at some point for, I would assume, Picard would be the next one. But until then, we will have to bid you adieu. But you can keep in touch with all of us. Frank, where do people find you?
Find me on the Twittergrams at Happy Go Jackie. Give me your rankings for what series you're more excited about. For me, it'd be Picard, a possible Pike series, Georgiou, Section 31. Actually, but Lower Decks, Georgiou, Section 31.
I think that's fair. Yeah. Nikki, where do people find you?
At Nikki Bailey _ and NikkiBaileyComedy.com. I also do the Happy After Show Wednesday nights at 9. No, 8.
9?
It's 8. It's 8 somewhere.
Yeah. It's 8 somewhere. Yeah.
Flobo.
I'm at Flobo Boys on Twitter and at Flobito on Instagram and Flobito.com. Before I get out of here, I want to say we saw planes, we saw fights, we went to ice planets and Klingon babies and planets with multiple religions rolled into one. It's been a crazy ride, but I've loved every single moment of it. Like I promised you guys, after this season, we're going to start DS9 and then TNG and then all those there is after that. So thank you so much.
But vote Flobo, everybody.
But just...
Yeah, vote for me, guys.
Vote Flobo.
Yeah, hashtag Boys in the Hood.
Unless you watched Voyager, then don't vote for him. But you can find me at Christian DMZ. That's Twitter and Instagram. That is all the time we have for this season. Thanks so much to everybody in the chat, the live chat, and also who leave comments after the fact. We really appreciate the interaction with our fans. We'll be back at some point in the future. Maybe 900 years in the future. Or
930.
930. Yeah. But until then, live long and prosper.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.